to Commissioner's Corner. Today I have with me Jason Brinkley. He's the Director of Planning and Zoning. And, we've had a lot of concerns on different projects that have gone in the county. And I asked Jason to come sit down with me today and we could address some of the complaints, some of the concerns that citizens have, and get the truth out there. I mean, you hear so many rumors these days, and, social media has good and bad, as you can well imagine, but not everything on these social media platforms or emails or anything you get is necessarily the truth. Well, we're here today to get to the bottom of it and the truth about these projects that have gone on. Jason, let's start our last meeting. We discussed the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan. And one of the biggest things that came out of that, there was a piece of property that's in limbo, so to speak, and has been for several years, the way I understand it. And that's at the corner of 231 and West Ayers Beach Road. I believe that property was in some type of employment district, and we looked at making some changes. And like I said, it's been in limbo for a while. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So at the last commissioner meeting, we had a public hearing regarding the Prince Frederick master plan. And the discussion was on what's called the Employment Center District area, which is an area just on the west side of Prince Frederick. That Employment Center District it came about in the mid-'90s, and it was meant for technical buildings. It was meant for really restricted commercial use, and really nothing's happened with it in about 30 years. And so it was kind of in this limbo land. So you wasn't able to have it farm. You wasn't able to necessarily do a whole lot of commercial in it. And going back to really the last 7 or 8 years, that has been proposed to be included into Prince Frederick. So that was always supposed to be a commercial area. The plan was to put that officially and fully in Prince Frederick Town Center.
If I remember correctly, it was almost like that designation was for future expansion of a town center.
And that's really what it was. So you had a few of the town centers that had these areas. In fact, the only 2 areas that still existed. There's one in Owings. We can touch on that maybe a little bit later. Okay. And then the one here in Prince Frederick. And going back to the 2020 comprehensive plan or 2019 comprehensive plan, even in our current zoning ordinance, it says that these districts are meant to be temporary. So they're meant to be included and incorporated into the town center as part of this master plan. That discussion had been the discussion for the last couple of courts. There are a couple of meetings that we had, and that was really meant to allow people to be able to utilize those properties so they're not so much in limbo. The discussion at the last meeting was how to frame that in a way that I think, Commissioner, that you and the fellow commissioners have really focused on, how not to create a whole lot of extra density.
Correct.
But to allow the vision of the comprehensive plan, the vision of the zoning ordinance to actually come to fruition. So the decision or the direction that was given to my staff, to planning and zoning at the last meeting, was really to take a look at what's called edge commercial. Okay. And what that is it wouldn't allow standalone residential property or uses in that area, but it would allow certain commercial uses. And so the comprehensive plan is really a high-level planning document. So what you guys told us to do is essentially, hey, go back to the Planning Commission, restart that approval process, get your public hearing there, get the Planning Commission input on that, and then come back to you with kind of what that product was to look like, or what that area was to look like. So that was the direction given.
Bringing the 2 documents together, basically.
Correct, and to get public input on it.
Right.
And this is a great time, and I think, Commissioner, this is exactly what you wanted, a platform like this, to allow public feedback for. This is a great time to be alert, because there will be future public hearings on this. So that input from the public is vital on how to include, or how best to include and utilize those properties in a way that benefits the community, but with the understanding that the direction given is to make sure that we don't have standalone residential and increased density in the town center.
All right, I appreciate it. I think that pretty much covered what we had talked about at Prince Frederick Town Center at the last meeting, and hopefully it addresses your concerns that some of you have on that property, and answers your question as to what's being done and what the process is going to be, and that the public is going to be involved. So many times we hear we're not being transparent. We want public feedback. One of the best instances in that is our zoning ordinance. We spent over a year trying to get our zoning ordinance sorted out, and we did have a lot of public interaction with that. We always welcome more, obviously, but that was an example of the community working together with our government to come up with a zoning ordinance that everybody was a part of for the benefit of us. While we're talking about town centers, let's one of the things that's been brought up many times was the survey that went out to St. Leonard, Huntingtown, and Owings Town Centers in reference to what would their preference be. Can you talk about why that survey went out and what it was about?
Sure. So Planning and Zoning put out a survey under the direction of the Planning Commission over the fall of last year. And that survey went out to the 3 smaller town centers, really as we start to plan what the future comprehensive plans or town center master plans are for those particular areas. And what we were seeking is soliciting feedback on, we looked at whether that should be a rural commercial district or a town center. Admittedly, the conversation should have been a little broader than that, but it's hard to capture that in a survey. So the purpose of that survey is just to get that, it's step 1A, and I think I've said that a few times in the meetings, that we're at step 1A of just give us your feedback on where you think these smaller town centers should go. And I know some of the discussions in the workshops that followed were about maybe a bringing back what we previously had a major and minor designation for town centers, bringing back something like that or not. And really, we're just still on the very edge of soliciting that public feedback. So there's going to be additional public meetings in those areas. There's going to be additional meetings in front of the Planning Commission, additional meetings in front of the Board of County Commissioners on that. But that survey was really just to kickstart that dialogue. And there's no decisions that have been made. I think everybody realizes that those are smaller town centers and don't need to be at the same level as a Prince Frederick. And it's how do we keep that in place the way that they need to be without opening up the avenue that I think nobody really wants to go down, which is creating a bunch more Prince Fredericks. So how do we get that? How do we get there? And we need that public input and that public facilitation of communication to figure out how we have those town centers be what we want them to be without creating something nobody wants.
Right. One of the things we learned from that, I just thought of when you talked about public feedback, when we did the mailers, correct me if I'm wrong, we only mailed to that zip code. However, there were other landowners that didn't necessarily live in that zip code, didn't have addresses in that zip code. So we did learn, and we're trying to make those changes. And we'll talk about that for a second.
So it's one of those situations where we went to the lowest common denominator for price. So we did an every box direct mailer, which hit every mailbox in that zip code, which is great. It gets that message out. But a lot of times there's property owners that don't have a mailbox in that zip code. They may live in Prince Frederick. They may live in Solomons. They may live in Dunkirk. So that was a lesson learned by our department, and there's better ways to do it. No department's perfect, no government's perfect. It's learned a lesson that you need to in order to make that better. We did hit a lot of mailboxes, but we missed some too.
Right,
and so how do you
just throwing
improve
it out there so we know we're trying to get to everybody.
How do you improve that process so next time you get that out even better?
Yep, I appreciate it. So let's talk about our adequate public facility ordinance. And we made those changes. I believe they came in February of 22. I believe. Anyhow, sometime in 2022, we actually adopted several changes to the APFO. And what that does is anytime there's a development that's proposed, we're going to look at a traffic safety study to regulate intersections, traffic congestion, to try to address that. Obviously, that's one of the biggest complaints we get is traffic, and rightfully so. Nobody likes sitting in traffic. Everybody wants to get to point A to point B as quickly as they can safely. Something else is police, fire, EMS. What's the demand on, what's the draw going to be on those? And that's all part of it as well. Our infrastructure, our water and sewer infrastructure, is there county water and sewer in that area? Can that infrastructure withstand it? Can our sewer plants withstand it? Are we going to be able to supply enough water to those communities with what we have in place now? What am I missing on that, Jason?
I think you've pretty much hit it. That ordinance was passed in November of 2022.
Okay.
And it really is meant to do exactly what the title, it's adequate public facilities. So making sure the development that comes in, that there are adequate public facilities to accommodate whatever that development is, so that you have any growth that's coming in being able to not overly burden the individuals or the facilities that are there now. And I think a good thing to note on that is that's not retroactive. So it only applies to projects that come in after that date, after it was enabled. So essentially you're looking at late 2022 when that came into being. If anybody knows how big development projects work, they take years to get through the pipeline. So some of the projects that have come online recently, that you're probably hearing about recently, actually those all started prior to that ordinance. So
and we're going to touch on each one of those projects. We're going to go through each one of them. Another thing we did, February 18th of 2025, we actually got our new zoning ordinance passed. As Jason talked about earlier, this Board of County Commissioners does not want to see high density growth at all in any way, shape, or form. So what we did, all the density in the town centers all went to 4 units per acre. Some of those were as high as 20 units per acre. So that's a significant cut in these. However, prior to that zoning ordinance being passed, there were several large-scale projects which we get phone calls, emails, complaints on, and I get it. I understand 100%. Some of those are in locations where I'm going to have to drive through that traffic every day. You think I'm happy about it? No, I'm not, to be quite honest with you. So I'm right there with you. I understand. The first one we're going to talk about is the Armory Square concept plan. So the Armory Square concept plan is at the corner of Dares Beach and 4. Okay, so everybody knows that's where our Audi is, that's where Sneed's is going, that's where all these buildings are going. Not everybody, we receive a lot of complaints. People are like, it's just what we need, another grocery store, another gas station, another whatever. It's more of the same, basically what they're saying, and people are concerned because of the empty storefronts throughout Prince Frederick. Well, along with that goes the way people do business these days has changed significantly. Brick and mortar joints, suffer all over the place, unfortunately. The reason being is because of the convenience of ordering from Amazon, ordering from all these online companies. I mean, you see more UPS, FedEx, and Amazon trucks on the road now, more than you ever have in your life, I'm sure. But we were unable to, I say we, the county commissioners at the time, because it was prior to this board, were unable to sit down with the developers and say, hey, look, this is what Calvert County needs. Well, one of the major changes we did in the zoning ordinance was enabled us to be able to sit down with that builder and say, hey, look, this is a need of Calvert County. Are you willing to work with us on maybe when you develop this to do A, B, C, D, and E? The verbiage on it changed so many times during the zoning ordinance. Jason, you're going to have to help me. What did it end up being called?
Community Enhancement District, I think, okay. Commissioner, is what you're referring to. Okay,
which gave us, or now gives us, the ability to talk to a developer, non-residential, unless it's mixed use, and be able to, just what I said, be able to talk to them and say, look, this is a need for Calvert County. Are you willing to work with us on this? And try to get through, again, soliciting public feedback. What do we need? And that would give us the opportunity, again, to be able to not control, but be able to have input on what type of development is being put here in our county. So that takes care of Armory Square. Calvert Hills Phase 2. Calvert Hills Phase 2 is off of Prince Frederick Boulevard, near the corner of West Dares Beach Road. And that one dates back to June of 23, which is prior to the new zoning ordinance taking place. The next one is Patuxent Commons Phases 1 and 2, which is Sullivan Lane, Potomac Court, and that one dates back to February of 2020. Again, the zoning ordinance and APFO hadn't been put into place yet. The next one is Armory Towns, which is Armory Road in Prince Frederick. It dates back to April of 2022. This was a smaller townhouse complex. And again, it dates back prior to the APFO and to the zoning ordinance coming into place. The largest one of these is Magnolia Ridge, which is next to Calvert High School. It goes back to October of 2021. And Again, it's prior to the APFO and the zoning ordinance being put into place. Next one's Prince Frederick Crossing. Prince Frederick Crossing, again, is off of Prince Frederick Boulevard, and that one dates back to March of 2021. And here's a second extension for Magnolia Ridge West, which goes back to April of 2022, which again is prior to the zoning ordinance being put into place, and it's prior to the new APFO regulations. And I was talking to Jason earlier. You know, it's between a rock and a hard place. But the zoning at the time and the APFO at that time allowed for this development to take place. All of these developments here to take place. These have been in the pipeline for much longer than the dates that they've been planned for years. But that was the most recent date that I could give you where the county had its involvement. If we do not or did not grant these developers access to do the plans that they had based upon the zoning ordinance that was put in place at the time, based upon the APFO, they went through the planning commission, we would find ourselves sitting in a courtroom every single day trying to defend this, and taxpayer dollars trying to pay for lawsuits at the end of the day, not to mention the hours that staff would be out here working trying to justify something that at the end of the day is not going to be justified in front of any court. Jason, did I miss anything?
No, Commissioner, I think you're spot on. I think that's something that's always a challenge with government is the commissioners have recently made updates to try to rein in some of that future development. But if it's in the system, if it's vested is the trigger word there, then there's really nothing that as a body you can do for those particular projects. So that's how come most of these you're starting to see it now because it takes so long for development to happen. But they originated under different regulations that have since been corrected. So it's that old adage: the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So that's a lot like the updates they made. They did the best that they could with being in the position now. But you've kind of got to live with the decisions made in the past to a certain extent.
So, Jason, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this question by any way, shape, or form, but is there anything you would like to talk about? You took over planning and zoning close to a year ago now?
Yeah.
So what changes have you made? What problems have you seen? What challenges have you faced? If you want to talk about?
Sure. So as Commissioner Ireland pointed out, I've took over as director in January of 2025, and even though I wasn't heavily involved with a lot of the front end, that was shortly after I took over is when we passed the new zoning ordinance, which is huge. The comprehensive zoning ordinance rewrite is a big task, and it's something that I think staff is still trying to adjust with because, as we pointed out, we've got to live by two sets of rules at the moment. You got the old rules for projects that are further along, and then you got the new rules for things that are coming in. But we're really trying to streamline the office a bit. We're in this lovely new building, so it helps to have people all in one place. I've seen a lot of improvement just in the past few months since we've been here with efficiencies within the office. Mm-hmm. We've done some reorganization in the office, really focused on customer service and how that we can best serve the public, because most people come to planning and zoning wanting to do stuff that is putting in a deck in their backyard or adding an accessory structure on their property. And we need to be able to give them an answer as quickly as possible. So we've really shortened our timelines on turning those around down to just mere days. We're working on some updates that we'll be probably rolling out here in the next few months or next few weeks even, that you'll start hearing about it's really inside baseball stuff on how we've updated the process and internally to make those projects go better through our land management system. So it frees up staff time to do quicker reviews, and make those improvements. But there's been a lot of inside changes that I think that hopefully the public starts seeing soon. And we've tried to be more open and transparent within the office as much as possible. We've got the Prince Frederick Town Center master plan, as we talked about, so public input on that's important. We've also got the Dunkirk master plan coming through the pipeline. There'll be a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission next month on that. So if you've got input on that, please feel free to let my staff know, join the meeting, make your voices heard, because anytime you're looking at these plans, the more public input you have, not ranting on Facebook, but the more public input you have through the proper process is really the best way to, as a community, to develop future land use plans for the county.
Thank you. So, it's very rewarding when a citizen emails you with a problem and you're able to pass it along to planning and zoning and pass it along to Jason, and that citizen recontacts you and thanks you for all the help. And, sometimes we can help people, sometimes we can't. It feels great when you can. It doesn't feel so great when you can't. But I think we have the right person in the right place here. And Jason, thank you for doing what you do, and I appreciate you being on board.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Once again, hopefully this helps. Hopefully it was informative. And I can tell you that everything you heard here today is factual. That's the most important thing. If you want to pass something along, pass along what you just saw, what you just heard, forward this, whatever the case may be. But I can't stress enough how important it is for people to have facts to talk about. Thank you.